I want to thank, oh, I forgot to put the mic on. All right, I want to thank everyone for joining us today for a very important press conference regarding public safety in our community and across the entire state of New York. Today, we are joined by community leaders, residents, as well as members of the law enforcement community, those who represent the brave men and women who are attempting to do their job and keep our communities safe. We are joined by Christopher Monahan of the Captains Union. We are joined by the NYPD Captains Union, Ed Mullins, the NYPD Sergeants Union, Paul DiGiacomo, the NYPD Detectives Union, Dennis Quirk, New York State Court Officers Association, Patrick Cullen, the Supreme Court Officers Union. I believe we also have representatives from the Corrections Officers, and John Marco, of Brooklyn South, trustee of the Lieutenants NYPD, as well as Tom Hellam, PBA Citywide trustee. We are here today because New York State is turning for the worse. In terms of public safety, we feel that there are major issues across the city of New York and across the state of New York as a result of the new bail law that took effect January 1st. A couple of months ago, I stood in front of the 68th precinct with members of the community, including leaders like Fran Bellamarone, the president of the Dyker Heights Civic Association, former prosecutor Mike Tanusis, Chung Dick, representing the Chinese community of Brooklyn, and others, to warn that the bail reform laws that were passed in Albany April 1st in the middle of the night, snuck in the budget without public airing, while the media was not in the building, while the public was no longer in the building, and while most of you were asleep, at around 2-3 in the morning is when they decided, the governor and the majority members, under one party rule, by the way, not one Republican did vote for this law, and I think that's important to note. They passed this bill in the middle of the night after only receiving it a few hours prior. Okay, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of pages of budget bills. I can guarantee that not one legislator who voted for that actually read it. And at the time when we warned about the disastrous results that would take place in our city and state, we were told we were fear-mongering, we were told that we were exaggerating, we were told all sorts of things. And you know what? We're standing here today with actual results, just 37 days after this law took effect. Across New York City, grand larcenies are up, robberies are up, burglaries are up, auto thefts are up 70%. Talk about going back to the 80s and early 90s. Felony assaults are up. 40% more shooting victims in our city. Transit crimes are up 34% across the city, and here in Brooklyn South, they are up 52%. Now, that is not fear-mongering. That is not exaggeration. Those are the facts. And I don't want to stand here telling you that we were right. I wish we were wrong. I really do, because this is about the public safety of our community. It's about the residents that want to grow up and send their children to schools that are safe. It's about the men and women on the front lines who are now in greater danger because repeat offenders are back onto the street. Now, we're at this particular location because right across the street is the 95th Street subway station, the R train, which many of my constituents use every single day to get to work. The morning of January 27th, a young woman was assaulted in the subway station as she went into the bathroom. She was punched, she was choked, and the perpetrator attempted to rape her. Thankfully, she got away. This tragedy, this attack was 100% preventable. The suspect who allegedly committed these crimes was previously being held on 2 open cases, but was released on December 19th. after the bail law was passed and Governor Cuomo had ordered the review and the release of cases in accordance to the new bail law. This is not the only incident. You read about it in the paper, you see it on the news every single day. We have seen individuals who are, in some cases, repeat offenders, multiple convictions, people who have committed assault, hate crimes, vehicular manslaughter while they were drunk driving, homicide, robberies, burglaries, all being released since January 1st. Those are facts. It's not fear-mongering. It's not an exaggeration. These are facts of what this law has caused. I will allow my good colleagues in public service speak. But what I'm calling for, and I think what everyone here agrees is, we want to restore judicial discretion. We want to consider criminal history. We're the only state in the union that does not consider dangerousness. How do you not consider if someone has a lengthy rap sheet of repeated violent offenses? How do you not consider that in making your decision to release them without bail? We want to confine the list of eligible crimes. Why should strangulation, and the best thing is my colleagues say that violent crimes are not included in the eligible bail crimes. Really? Strangulation, assault, aggravated assault, every type, by the way, of drug dealing, including selling drugs on school grounds, while we have an epidemic that we are fighting and putting in so many resources to combat. Vehicular manslaughter while drunk driving, criminally negligent homicide. Those are all crimes that I would say are pretty damn serious. So don't tell me that this is low-level offenses and this is only for first-time offenders, because that is not the truth. We want to protect our witnesses, and I will let, of course, Dennis Quirk speak later about that. And we want to add judges. Think about this. If your goal here is to not allow those who are accused to linger in court, gee, it would be a good idea if we gave everyone their constitutionally protected right to a speedy trial. And that means investing in our court system, adding judges, adding court officers, adding court clerks to ensure that everyone gets their right to a speedy trial and these cases are heard quickly. That would make sense. But that's not what this law did. They just decided to do a blanket policy, would just release everyone back on the street and hope that they return for their court date. The governor, during his budget address, we're finally making some progress, has finally acknowledged the need to make changes. He said in his budget address, we need to respond to facts, not politics. Well, I got to tell the governor something. If he responded to facts in the first place and not politics, we wouldn't be standing here today. I want to call up the president of our captains union, Christopher Monahan, to say a few words.
We were just up in Albany the last couple of days. It's a big topic. It's obviously it's a serious matter, and it needs to be addressed. It needs to be fixed. I said it here before. It wasn't really broken. The judges had discretion, keeping the violent criminals in where they're supposed to be and keeping the community safe. Thank you.
Ed Mullins, president of the Sergeants Union.
Good morning, everyone. I think we just got a good idea of what Nicole is talking about as far as the crimes and what's occurring here in New York State. Assault is a felony. Manslaughter, rape, right over here in this train station, could have been prevented. The people in the city and the state need to wonder who wants to be a victim. Our elected officials are there to serve the people. They're not there to open the floodgates to the criminals to victimize the people. Albany released people who were arrested for homicide. Just in last night's news, Nassau County, MS-13 gang members allegedly have killed a witness, a complaining witness. This is not protected under the bail reform laws. That man should still be alive. He testified, and they came and they killed him. The problem needs to be addressed. When Governor Cuomo ran for Attorney General, he said to me, eye to eye, I do not forget. Well, that's a lie. Governor Cuomo has forgotten the people of New York State, the people he serves. The New York State Assembly, the New York State Senate that passed his bill and signed off by the governor, they knew what they were signing. They wrapped us into the budget. They slipped this past everyone with a political agenda, without thought for the people who live in his state. You have almost law enforcement representing the majority of New York City is telling you what's occurring out here in these streets. It's up to the people to demand from the elected officials to address this issue, to do it now, because anyone out there can be the next victim. Thank you.
Paul DiGiacomo, the president of the NYPD Detectives Union. Sorry, it's broken.
Okay, I'll just do this way. I thank everyone for showing up today. We stand here together to say, wake up, Albany. These criminal justice reforms are wrong. We are here at this location where a sexual assault took place by a violent criminal who was released without bail after being arrested for robbery. This is sadly only one of many tragic violent stories. On Monday, January 27th, on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, an 82-year-old woman was thrown to the ground and robbed of her purse. The man responsible, who has more than a dozen robbery priors, was arrested shortly, released without bail. Serial bank robber Gerard Woodbury was released without bail after being arrested for 4 bank robberies in Manhattan from December 30th through January 8th. The day after his release without bail, he robbed another bank in Brooklyn, terrorizing the employees who could have been your family member. Even this brazen criminal was shocked as he stated, "I can't believe they let me go." When detectives of the New York Drug Enforcement Task Force arrested 6 men for running a $7 million fentanyl ring, they too were released without bail. This deadly poison would, without a doubt, taken lives of very young New Yorkers. Now these drug dealers are walking the streets. Each and one of these crimes leave behind a victim, a person left recovering, scared, and violated. When judges don't have discretion over bail, the safety of every New Yorker and every New York City police officer is jeopardized. During the first month of 2020, this city saw a 17% increase in crime. That's hundreds of more robberies, assaults, and shootings. That translates to more victims. The number doesn't truly reflect on what's going on. 17% is not the real number. That number is higher because the victims fear coming forward due to the new evidence discovery laws that mandate their personal information be quickly turned over to the criminals. As New York City detectives, we keep the people of this city safe. We should expect nothing less from our elected officials. Victims are who New York City detectives care about. We investigate these crimes. We're calling on you, the governor, the New York State Assembly, the New York State Senate, to do the same by reforming these reforms. Just use common sense. You're elected by the people, for the people, protect the people. Thank you.
Dennis Quirk, president of the New York State Court Officers Association.
Good morning, everyone. The power to release these criminals has to be returned to the individual judge. A judge looking at their record, their prior arrest, what they've done in the past, that has to be the determining factor. We need to protect people. Right now, everyone who comes in front of a judge is being let out. It's like we're a revolving door. Victims are not safe. Witnesses are not safe. No one is safe. Judges are experienced, have the training, the knowledge to look at each individual. It's true that bail laws needed to be reformed, they needed to be changed, but so that someone who was arrested for shoplifting was not kept in jail for $200. But we went from the right of this all the way to the left. We did the complete opposite. And now we are hurting the victims, we're hurting the public, and the streets of New York City are no longer safe. Thank you.
Patrick Cullen, Supreme Court officers.
Morning, everybody. It's a shame that we even have to be out here, but on behalf of my membership, we'll continue to stand out here with Assemblywoman Malliotakis and all the representatives from law enforcement and community throughout New York City until this law is walked back and it makes more sense than it does now to make our members safer, their families safer, and all New Yorkers safer in their workplace, in their communities. And thank you for having me.
If anyone from the lieutenants or from the patrol members want to say a few words, they're welcome to do so, as well as the corrections officers.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lieutenant John DeMarco. I have 30 years with law enforcement. The only thing I could say easily and simply for everyone, this bail reform bill was devastating to law enforcement. What we've done for 30 years has gone backwards. From 2020, we're back in 1985. If we don't fix this now, it's only going to get worse. And the victims that are out there, God help them, because all it's going to do is the revolving door, like you heard my counterpart say. They're going to go in, they're going to come back out and do it again. There is no repercussions. They don't feel any remorse for what they do. So there'll be more victims. We need to repeal this reform bill, and we need to do it now. Repeal it. Thank you.
I want to thank all our law enforcement officers for being here today. Is there somebody missing? I would like to thank all our law enforcement officers who are here with us today. And let me tell you, to get them all together speaks volumes. This is how serious this issue is. We need to continue to call the governor. We need to continue to call state legislators, and we need to continue to make noise, talk about these crimes that are happening, and urge my colleagues in Albany to do something about it quickly, sooner rather than later, because we're seeing people being killed as a result of this, as we just saw last night, and we can save lives by making changes immediately. I want to open it up for questions for me or any of the union presidents who are here today.
Could you explain what the process would be to return this certificate?
Just have to pass legislation. It's as simple as that. My conference, and there are a couple of members of the Democratic Party who have also introduced legislation to restore judicial discretion. So now there is bipartisan support to return judicial discretion and to consider dangerousness. There are bills out there. We can pass it on Monday. We need the will of the governor. We need the will of the speaker, Carl Hastie, of the Assembly, and we need the will of Senate President Cousins. And that's it. It can happen immediately. We have asked prior to this law taking effect for the governor to issue an executive order to halt it. We think the proper thing to do would be to repeal the whole legislation and have public hearings. Hear what the law enforcement legal community has to say. The DA's Association very much opposed to this legislation as well. You have seen a number of Democrats and Republicans, district attorneys who have come out against this, and we should be listening to them. You know, don't take my word. Listen to the men and women who are on the front lines every single day. Our prosecutors, our police officers, our law enforcement unions. That's who the governor should be listening to. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.